What is up? Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We got a jam-packed show for you guys because we had a lot of news come down yesterday. We had a couple trades. We had a big quarterback benching. We're going to go to some deep dives a little bit. We're going to get to your guys' mailbag questions at the end of this show. But in the first off the ball, we're going to start with this. Ravens trade for Diontae Johnson, the crown jewel of apparently this like wide receiver availability class.
Correct.
For almost nothing. A 5th, 6th pick swap.
Yeah.
And Carolina is eating a lot of his salary too to do it. So basically they wanted him out of town.
Next to nothing for that guy.
Happy there in Carolina with how their season went. But for the Baltimore Ravens, people like, I think I even on the show said, they don't even use 3 wide receivers. Like people are saying, get them another weapon. It's like they don't really even need it at this point. But this is kind of just insurance for when you do have to go 3 wide, when it is maybe a 3rd and long. Now you've got maybe the 3 best separators in the NFL, or the best separating trio of wide receivers in the NFL.
You look around the league, and the issue with a lot of these offenses right now is the health of some of their star players. We got 2 guys down in Tampa Bay. New Orleans fell off an absolute cliff when they lost one of their receivers and their O-line situation. Texans, Kansas City will sell their soul for some more receivers, and they went and got DeAndre Hopkins. You saw the effect that it had on that Rams offense, albeit Diontae Johnson isn't Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. This is a big thing, and even if he doesn't go in there and play immediately and have a huge impact on that offense, it's the availability, the dependability of knowing that you've got another guy with shorter area quickness that can burst and be in Lamar's repertoire.
The interesting thing about this one is I thought Bateman was starting to come on. Now, he did have a few drops this last week. And Nelson Aguilar, to me, has come on as well. So to your point, Mike, this one was a little bit of a head scratcher. I think it's to what Kyle was saying. It's more about depth, right? Just because they know it's a long season, most likely somebody will get banged up. I mean, Diontae Johnson's been banged up this year. You talked about him being able to separate. He's also had issues with drops as well. So when you look at this Ravens offense, Isaiah Likely is starting to come on strong. They really feature 12 personnel a lot when you talk about 1 back, 2 tight ends. So to me, this is just like we want to make sure we have depth, just in case we have a Houston Texans situation, just in case we have a Tampa Bay Bucks situation. Now, the question is Diontae Johnson going to be cool with that, right? Because right now, I don't see him coming in and starting over any other of those guys. Like Bateman, like I said, has played well, Nelson Aguilar. And to Mike's point, they feature 12 personnel a lot. So it's not like they're in 11 a lot. Yeah. Even on 3rd down, like they like their matchup with Isaiah Likely on the field. So it'll be interesting, John Harbaugh, they have a great culture there, right? Diontae Johnson's coming into their culture. I'm sure there'll be some conversations had like, hey, we got you out of Carolina. Right now we're going to ease you into the offense. We've got some guys that we have a lot of faith in, but we need you to be ready if your name's called upon.
You can answer to this as a defensive lineman. As an offensive lineman, obviously the only time that we left the field is for injury, right? Or like if we performed so poorly that they had to try somebody else out. So for D linemen, and I talk to my older brother Chris about this all the time. Chris was an every down guy in St. Louis for years and years and years. And they didn't win a lot of games in St. Louis, but when he had an opportunity to go somewhere and win, he took the chance. So for a guy like Diontae Johnson, who's been struggling to find his success story in Carolina, an opportunity to go to a place like Baltimore is awesome. And you talk about the personnel they run, 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. So it's a limited opportunities for Diontae Johnson as a rusher. Okay, so now I'm going to make this as a defensive lineman. When you're in a group like that, when you're in a room that is successful, that already has the pieces, and you're going to be a rotational guy, not necessarily have as many opportunities, are you willing to do that if you have a chance to win this whole thing?
I think it just depends on where you're at in your career. And we've had this discussion before, Kyle. Like, say you're in the beginning of your career and you're, quote unquote, a star or right below a star level and you're a prominent starter, then it depends on what your contract looks like, the money looks like. My thing is, if you've played like 7 or 8 seasons and you haven't had a lot of success, like Diontae Johnson, then it makes a lot of sense. Right now, Diontae Johnson is still pretty young. He's not that old. I believe it's like 28 or 29, if I'm not mistaken. But this is a scenario where in Pittsburgh, yes, they would go to the playoffs, but they'd lose in the first round. He wasn't going to have a lot of success in Carolina. I think it makes a lot of sense from his perspective to go there, buy his time, learn the offense. When they need him, be ready to play. Right now, you talked about the defensive line perspective. I think it's just a lot different because defensive linemen usually rotate more unless you're your brother, unless you're Max Crosby. Those guys don't come off the field. But most defensive lines, they rotate probably like 6 or 7 plays. Like guys are rotating in and out. So you're going to get an opportunity. And what that does, it makes you more hungry and competitive too, because you don't know how many plays you're going to get. So you got to take full advantage when you're out there. So Diontae Johnson, I look at this like he has an opportunity to win, which he hasn't been able to do. And not just win and go to the playoffs, like go further in the playoffs, right? And he's with a culture that is synonymous with winning, and they do things the right way. They're a tough-built team. That's why I wonder what the culture fit is going to be like, and does he start feeling the type of way if he doesn't play or make an impact right away?
Is he going to assimilate or is he not?
Correct.
Really, that's the question.
It's not as if he has the best reputation.
But that's why I asked that question.
I feel like Baltimore is one of those places where it's like get in or get out.
Yeah,
sure.
It will be.
I mean, well, Pittsburgh was like that too, and I think that's why they traded
Get
him.
out.
They said get out, yeah. But I couldn't believe still, even with all that, a 5th, 6th pick swap.
Yeah,
it wasn't like they gained a pick. They just swapped a pick.
Because now the Ravens get whatever compensatory pick, should they let him walk this offseason, that he should generate. And it's not a massive wide receiver free agent class. It's like him and T. Higgins.
Correct.
And when that's the case, usually that bumps up the price a little bit. So I think he's going to get you back like at least a 5th from the contract he gets. And now I know that Carolina probably wouldn't have gotten it because they would have been players in free agency, signed more than they let go. So they wouldn't have gotten that compensatory pick. But someone else could have, like someone like the Texans who just lost Stephon Diggs with an ACL, someone like the Chiefs who obviously they went DeAndre Hopkins elsewhere. But I feel like there were other teams around the NFL that he made more sense for that for this price did not seem like was.
And the Ravens didn't want to run that chance.
To pay.
The Ravens didn't want that chance, and they could afford it.
Mike brings up a really good point. I don't think there's a better team in the NFL when it comes to gaining compensatory picks than the Ravens. And maybe this is what they
literally have been since the
they're like the best team. Like they will let guys go, right? Because they feel like we can develop guys that'll come in and fit our culture and still play at a high level. I mean, case in point, how many big free agents did they lose last year? Davion Clowney, right? Geno Stone, Patrick Queen. Like they'll let top end starters go because they feel like we draft really well. We'll develop guys,
cultivate
exactly, and they'll fit in our system. So that's a really good point, Mike. They literally could have made this trade because they're like, he's not in our future plans. Yeah. We're gonna let him go. We're gonna gain a 5th or 6th round pick next year.
So it's gonna cost you nothing for insurance. So very smart team building from the Vikings perspective. And then the other thing they do in free agency that is very smart is they let those guys walk, and then when they do sign free agents, usually it's guys who are cut elsewhere.
Yep.
Because then they won't factor into compensatory.
Or sign guys really late, Calvin, to David.
After it all counts. So it's they know what they're doing there in Baltimore. Another team that maybe knows what they're doing a little bit, the Minnesota Vikings, traded for Cam Robinson also yesterday. A 5th that could become a 4th, and they give up, I believe, a 7th that could become a nothing based off of some conditions about his playing time there in Minnesota. Yeah. So with Christian Darrisaw out, we kind of postulated that they could make a move like this. They're still in the hunt. I don't think this pushes them over the edge. I think it's still a massive downgrade from Christian Darrisaw.
It's a necessity, though.
Yeah, it was a necessity.
This is a necessary move
to keep your season on
track.
For
the Minnesota Vikings, who started hot, they've kind of stumbled as of late. But that offense, it's kind of based around the fact that they can have those 2 tackles and protect and allow Sam Darnold that comfortability to sit back there in the pocket and run O'Connell's offense. When you've got somebody not named Darrisaw in there, it's not going to look as good. You go get Cam Robinson, you're able to put a Band-Aid on that wound a little bit and move forward. This tells me that they do think that this is the team that can make a run here.
I will say Pete Prisco was all on this.
Yes.
Right? Christian Darrisaw, to your point, was playing Pro Bowl, maybe all-pro type football this year. Literally, he was toying with guys out there. Major loss for them. To your point, you can't replace him. This is essentially a Band-Aid. Cam Robinson has struggled at times this year, but he's a guy that has a lot of experience, that has played at a high level before. And again, you want to make sure that at left tackle, you have somebody that's at least sustainable. That way Sam Darnold has an opportunity to be able to throw the ball down the field.
I think as an offensive tackle in the league, as an offensive lineman in the league, we offenses at their root, it's like a root language. Like we all come from Latin, you know what I'm saying? So there's inside zones, there's powers, there's scat protection, there's jet protection, 7-man, 6-man stuff. You can run nakeds, but it's those details of the Kevin O'Connell offense. I'm interested to see how long it takes Cam Robinson to get up to speed on. How many steps am I taking on this tunnel screen? What's the count on release for this halfback screen? What are our calls? These are the type of things that remain to be seen for Cam Robinson. But if he focuses up, we could see him in in the lineup, obviously, as quick as next game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, from the Vikings perspective, I don't think this pushes them over the hump, but I think this keeps them playoff competitive at minimum.
Yes.
But I think they're still firmly behind the able. It's just you can't replace, again, what you had there in Christian Darrisaw. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to the big benching that happened yesterday with Anthony Richardson and a couple other deep dives.
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got two thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Anthony Richardson, after a 10 of 34 showing over the weekend.
They rung him up.
Benched. Taps himself out, and then they tap him out yet again.
See what you did there.
Double tap.
Hey, coach.
But it brings up a bigger point of developing young quarterbacks and what the right path is, because he's only started 10 games in the NFL. And when they drafted him, they knew he had one season of starting experience under his belt at Florida. They knew it was going to be a multi-year process. Everyone's making the comps to guys like Josh Allen and what the Bills had to suffer through for a couple years before the light switch proverbially flipped on with him. But to me, in this benching, it is, and Mitchell Schwartz had a great thread about this. I'm going to actually read one of his tweets verbatim here. He said, you think maybe, just maybe, there's something more to this than a few bad QB plays, and that it's not stat line related, that the team that talked about patience and going through the bumps with the young QBs didn't just forget about their developmental plan, because that's what they said when they drafted him. They said they knew it was going to be long-term. But to me, this is part of a developmental plan, because when a guy takes himself out of the game, and I think Mitchell Schwartz hit the nail on the head here, there is something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about in terms of what he's doing and how he's handling his business day to day. That when his offensive lineman, Ryan Kelly's willing to like call him out for that after the game, when like,
I didn't see what Ryan Kelly said. What did he say?
He just basically said, like, we're going to have a conversation about things like that. That's like, can't do that, basically.
Essentially what we said.
Yeah. And it's like, usually they're as protective as can be of their guy in situations, any adverse situations that go on in the NFL. So to me, this is like there were things going on that they were just not happy with. And that's, you see him on Sundays. His play was bad. Objectively, no one's going to defend what he was doing, especially from an accuracy perspective. But that the best course of action at this time was to say, hey, you got to get everything else in order before we let you see the football field again. You have to get your house in order, because the way he was preparing, it wasn't going to get him in a spot to develop on Sundays, because you just look at his tape. The same guy we saw weeks 1, 2, 3 last year, the same guy we're seeing now. There's like no objective difference in anything, any aspect to his game. And frankly, he's getting worse. Like, frankly, his accuracy and things look worse this year than they even did last year. So I agree with this move personally. I do think that this can be a good thing if utilized and the messaging is correct in the locker room.
People think that this essentially is the Indianapolis Colts saying, we're done with him. But
I don't believe
that is not the case at all.
Yes.
This is what young quarterback development looks like when things go awry. And at times, it's not always going to be going as swimmingly as Jaden Daniels or a guy like Caleb Williams. There are going to be projects in the NFL like this guy, Anthony Richardson. Yes, he's got the physical tools, and we have all fallen in love with the things he can do with his body and his arm strength and his toughness. But at the end of the day, this game is a lot more than that. So I think this harbors an opportunity for Anthony Richardson to be able to go into practice, treat every practice like a game. You get to see that Colts defense every single day with the scout team reps and take it seriously. I'm not in the building. To your point, we don't know what's going on behind the snes. But I'll tell you this: you show up today, or you show up at your first day of practice as the backup, and you say, "I'm going to wear this defense out every single day." You got to take it as a challenge. I never was in a position where I got demoted to second string in the middle of the season or anything like that. But I've definitely been in a spot where I feel challenged by a coaching staff, and we can all relate to that. For Anthony Richardson, take this opportunity and use it as fuel. And for the Colts, take these reps that don't have a score to them. They're not a game, and make them game-like for Anthony Richardson.
100%.
You can use this season as an off season for him. Joe Flacco's not going to play forever. Okay, the guy's got to go home eventually. So this is the Colts. This is punting down the field, and all the while Anthony Richardson will be getting better.
And here's the thing: they have an awesome situation. Right? Like from a developmental perspective, you can't ask for much more than what they've done at the wide receiver position, at the offensive line position,
Correct.
And at running back. Like it's all there for him to succeed.
Yeah.
So when you're comparing him to early career Josh Allen, who had similar numbers but wasn't benched, it's like Josh Allen was thrown to Zay Jones and Kelvin Benjamin. Like we got to keep things into perspective.
Kelvin Benjamin,
here.
who is 300 pounds.
Yes, and not even just like prime Kelvin Benjamin, like endo career Kelvin Benjamin
too.
And Cole Beasley a year too. John Brown, but like his early starts were in a objectively it was complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what.
Yeah, but the numbers, Mike. But the numbers tell you he's better than Josh Allen was.
So with Richardson, when you're completing 44% of his passes, it's not because guys aren't open. It's because he's legitimately missing like half of his passes. It's a completely different conversation that we're having here. And again, people used to bench quarterbacks all the time. This was not an uncommon thing. And if benching you as a quarterback ruins your career, if that's what ruins your confidence, anyway, you weren't going to be the guy anyway.
Well, it's funny, right? Because we're having this discussion, agreeing with a lot of what you guys are saying. But now I'm trying to go back into my memory bank. And when was most recently a time a quarterback got benched in the middle of the season? Rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Not rookie quarterback, but it's rookie
developmental,
developmental quarterback. And then actually came back and developed to be a guy.
Not in my football analyzing.
Not off the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. So at first I was like, this isn't the end of him.
But how many of those guys are Anthony Richardson?
I mean,
from a skill set standpoint.
They said Jamarcus Russell's arm was stronger than everybody's. And
he was an outlier, and now we're getting into that real estate.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So is Anthony Richardson in that same category?
Yeah.
So it's just like, to your point, right? Josh Allen went through some.
It's also because when you get benched, like things are going really bad. Like now,
100%. Well, I mean, but what we just talked about it, right? Things are going really bad for Josh Allen, and they knew again he was a developmental guy. We got to go through some of these ugly spouts with him, just because we feel like eventually he's going to get over the top. Right now, it took them getting him a true number one receiver to do that, right? Yeah. But I just go back and I think I'm like, when's the last time a guy got benched? They didn't let him like develop through the ugliness, and that he came back after being benched and became a guy.
I don't know. And I mean, I remember guys at other positions that we had drafted relatively highly that were physical specimen, but they just couldn't figure out how to play the game of football. And you sit them down early and hopefully they can learn from the vet that's not as talented, but it's just a better football player. And it never pans out. Next thing you know, Johnny's out of the building and you're on to the next draft pick.
So at first I was, again, with you guys. But again, now that I'm going down my memory bank, we're big proponents of, in the NFL, we've had to see it before. Right. And I don't think we've seen a scenario in recent memory where a guy does get benched and he comes back. I mean, people were saying the same thing with Bryce Young. He got benched. They'll eventually go back to him. Again, he's in a totally different scenario. To your point, Mike, Anthony Richardson has a way better setup than Bryce Young does in Carolina, right? As far as the offensive line, the running back, the skill position players, and he's got Shane Steichen.
Yeah, the coach.
Right? Like the coach alone, right, should give you an opportunity. Case in point, Gardner Minshew had them one game away from winning the AFC South last year. So when you look at it, like I hate to be premature, but could this be the end for Anthony Richardson, even though he's only played 10 games? Because what happens if Joe Flacco goes out there and pulls a Gardner Minshew and leads them to the playoffs?
Yep, because they're not too far out of it.
This is a guy that's 40 years old, essentially, right? And he leads them to the playoffs. Then it doesn't look good on Anthony Richardson. And again, he's a developmental guy. You knew there were going to be a lot of ups and downs when it comes to him. But to Mike's point, for them to be willing to pull him this early after only 10 starts has to be something more in regards to his preparation. And case in point, I don't understand how he had the gall to say something like that when a reporter asked him what happened on that play. Like, I'm not a big proponent of lying. That was the perfect example of lying. Like, just saying, you could have just said I was banged up for a second. Yeah. They wanted to check me out, and then I went back into the game. For you to say I did a lot of running around and I'm tired, when you look at guys like this in the huddle who are laying it on the line every single play and they don't get to come off the field, how do you think that makes them feel?
Because it was Quentin Nelson was the first guy on the scene of the crime when Anthony Richardson went down and got back up. Quentin Nelson runs over after finishing blocking for like the 60th time in the game, by the way, without coming off the field. Goes over there, checks on his guy.
Sure, his guy's good.
And then he goes to go back, and then next thing you know, Anthony Richardson doesn't return. So it's like, man, oh man, how do you expect your guys to follow when you're not leading?
I always say this. A head coach always has the pulse of the team. Case in point, Mike Tomlin. Like, that was a big decision to insert Russell Wilson as head coach. And only a few coaches probably can make that decision, right? Mike Tomlin has a lot of trust from his team, and he actually knew the pulse of the locker room, and he felt like we could just get a little bit better at quarterback, and it's paying out for them, right?
Yeah.
But if it went left, people would have been questioning Mike Tomlin.
Yep.
Like, so for Shane Steichen, and obviously he had to get the okay from the people in the front office, right, to do a move like this, especially when you take a guy in the top 5 as a top 5 pick. There had to be something there, to Mike's point, where he was either not preparing right. And again, I don't want to put words into what could potentially be happening, but for you to feel comfortable
because we're not
enough,
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For you to feel comfortable enough to bench a guy after only 10 starts says a lot about what Anthony Richardson is doing or not doing inside that building.
Because at quarterback, it's not only about skill development. There's like a maturity development, or that's any position.
Leadership development.
Yeah, but especially quarterback, because you are the guy. You are the guy that everyone looks to. And so when you're the guy that everyone looks to, and year 2 in your career, you're thinking it's all right to just take a play off. That's like,
I'm dignified by saying it too, which is insane.
I'm on Netflix last night watching this thing called The Comeback, and it was about the ALCS from 2003 and 2004 with the Yankees and the Red Sox. And one of the guys that kept getting interviewed was Pedro Martinez, and Pedro Martinez was the horse for the Boston Red Sox, and they rode him all the way to the end. And one thing he talked about was, when you are the leader, when you are the alpha, you have to show your guys that you're about business.
I love that.
And you're not taking any days off. You're not taking any pitches off. And I think a guy like Anthony Richardson, or any young player who wants to be a leader and respected by his men, can take a page out of Pedro's book, have an understanding that you are the alpha, and your behaviors, your actions, they have a lot of weight to them.
Case in point, there's a quarterback in Washington whose ribs are messed up.
Perfect example.
Didn't even practice most of the week. Practiced a little bit on Friday. But he knew his guys were laying it on the line. Plus, he knew there was a guy on the other side that got drafted in front of him.
Yep.
So there's a competitive fire or juice that
I just got
alpha dogs have. Jaden Daniels went out there and played like nothing was wrong with him. Matter of fact, you didn't see any effects of him having a rib injury until he took that shot in the fourth quarter.
He hit him right in the ribs.
Exactly. So, like, they literally slid protected because they showed pressure. They got it wrong. The end was literally scot-free. Jacob Martin hit him right up under the ribs. Just for that one play, he was like, rest of the game, you didn't see him wince or anything. Matter of fact, still had the competitive fire to throw it 65 yards in the air to give them a chance to win the game. So, like, when you talk about guys that are willing to fight for their quarterback, who is the leader on their team, you hear how these guys talk about Jaden Daniels. Man, 5 is just different.
They would kill for Jaden Daniels.
Foxhole guy.
Yes.
They'd go in the foxhole for him.
Yes.
Like Anthony Richardson.
It's the Mahomes effect.
Correct. You're the leader of this team. You can't take any plays off. I don't care how tired you are. The only thing you could have did was like, hey, can we just get a run play next play?
Yeah.
I just need a play.
Let's run stretch.
Exactly. Let me just hand it off just so I can catch my breath. But for you to have the gall to go to the sideline when 10 other men are looking you in the face and they're not coming off on the field, there is no excuse for that.
Oh.
Do we think, we'll end it with this, do we think this and the Anthony Richardson saga will have knock-on effects to college, where guys deciding if maybe they're like 1-year starters, like in the Zach Wilson mold or the Anthony Richardson mold, where they're like obvious projects, but they're projected top 5 because they have these tools? Do we think we'll see those guys stay in college longer? Do we think we'll see NFL teams be less willing to take chances on them? Or do we think there's just going to be no really ramifications? This kind of,
I think every single one of these guys think that they are the next guy that could be a star. I think that these pro teams are going to start taking into account the fact that the project will be on their hands.
I don't think anything changes.
Nothing changes.
Because all these what people don't understand is front office guys, coaches, people will say players have egos. They have more egos than players, right? They feel like I can be the guy to change this guy around. Like I can develop this guy. And the crazy thing is we always talk about this. instead of trying to be the guy of the one-off guy, right? Go with the consistent guy, right? The guy that we've seen do it before. No, everybody wants to be the one-off guy. Like, they changed Josh Allen. We could do it too. No, you can't. Like, that's not the rule. That's the exception.
Yep.
You need to be the rule and not the exception. So honestly, Mike, I don't think anything changes because I think people in the front office have just as big an ego, if not more, than players.
But I think the people in the front office are more afraid to have those egos shattered. So when they think about the investments that they're going to be making or the make or break deals that they're going to be getting involved in, as it pertains particularly to the quarterback position, you're going to see them be more cautious, I think, and go for these guys that are more pro-ready as opposed to, oh, my God, what could this guy become?
I think you could see a lean that way because it's not just Richardson. I mean, we saw with Trey Lance, too, very notably, where it's just like this guy, pure project, and then just couldn't even see a football field.
But then Malik Willis doesn't stop winning.
So
what the hell are we doing out here?
But then they said he essentially was a project, too.
But then Malik Willis was probably drafted where you would want to draft.
I don't think the thing is, this is why development.
Was he second round?
Third round. Development and coaching matters so much, right? Because it's all about where you go. And we saw Malik Willis kind of change this year with a new staff and Brian Callahan come in. And I know Pete Prisco went down there and spent some time in Nashville. He said he like a totally different quarterback. And obviously, shout out to GM Brian Gutekunst because he saw something in training camp and throughout preseason that says, hey, that guy's different. And if anything hopefully happens to Jordan Love, which case in point, it did this year.
Win.
We need to go get him right now. I know a lot of people were surprised by that trade, but that literally right now looks like one of the best trades ever for this past season.
All right.
That was a good talk. That was a good talk.
That was a really good
I will also say, I don't think it's going to impact college guys wanting to declare because Richardson got $34 million in the bank.
That's my point. It's like
100%.
these guys are still like, no, get me out of college and get me my big money now. I could care less if I succeed. Do you see the numbers we're going to be making?
All right, Leger, what's your deep dive here?
So I wanted to dive in because it's about midway through the season right now on the MVP race, right? Love to have this be interactive like we just had the conversation with Mike. I'll give you my top 4 guys, right? And this is in no particular order, right? I've been beating this drum for a long time. Jaden Daniels, top 4 guy to be. Jared Goff, completion percentages through the roof. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And I'll start with Jaden. When you talk about the most valuable player, right, I don't know if there's anybody that's more valuable to their team right now than Jaden Daniels. Everybody thought this Commanders team would probably be like 2 years away, right? I'll give credit to Pete Prisco, said this is a sneaky team that could mess around and go 9-8 and sneak into the playoffs. But right now, it looks like they're fighting for first and second place in the NFC right now. They're tied with the Eagles in first place for the NFC East. And it's because of Jaden Daniels, right? I told people it would take a little while for that defense to come along because Dan Quinn was implementing a new system. That defense is playing really well, and nobody's talking about it right now because obviously Jaden Daniels is the story, right? The things that he can do from within the pocket, the things he can do outside of the pocket, the toughness that he had. We just spoke about him literally playing with messed up ribs this past week. A lot of people didn't think he was going to go. And he made some clutch throws and some clutch scrambles as well.
Huge scrambles.
And when you look at it, right, I believe he's top 23 in rushing yards, right, and top 12 in passing, which is insane, right? When you look at his numbers, his completion percentage, I believe, is 71%, which is crazy.
That's a good night in Madden for me.
Exactly. He had 4 rushing touchdowns, 7 passing touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. To me, right now, Lamar was the front runner, but I think the last week loss, I would elevate Jaden as the top guy right now.
Wow.
You go to Jared Goff, and he doesn't have like the gaudy numbers, right? But his completion percentage is out of control. 74%. I believe Malik Willis is the only one that has higher. Would he qualify in regards to how many games he's actually played? I mean, I think that there's something to be said about Malik Willis still having the ridiculous completion percentage because that was his whole thing coming out of college.
Matt LaFleur.
Exactly. Could he be accurate with the football? He's been ultra accurate with the football. He's throwing for right under 1,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. And the crazy thing is, guys, he only had 85 yards passing this past game, but he didn't have to do much, right? Because their offense, and this is the thing about the Detroit offense, right? Shout out to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. They make you defend so much, bro. Like it's utterly ridiculous as a defensive player what you have to think about when it comes to defending the Detroit Lions, right? They can play bully ball with your guy, David Montgomery, right? And then they have Sonic in the backfield and Jahmyr Gibbs, who literally can take any run 70-plus yards, right? J-Mo right now is suspended, Jameson Williams, and he was having a heck of a season to start the season. And then you talk about the sun god, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, to me right now is probably a top 7-8 receiver in the league. And they use him in multiple ways. They motion him a lot. The crazy thing is Sam Laporta was such a big part of their offense. They haven't really used him that much this year. So that lets you know like how deep this roster is on offense. People wondered on defense, Aiden Hutchinson is gone. We got to get Max Crosby. And I said, I think they'll be fine. Now, I wouldn't go all in on Max Crosby because you don't want to, sacrifice your future.
Out leverage.
Yeah, well, you don't want to sacrifice your future in regards to picks. And Aiden Hutchinson is going to come back. The way that Aaron Glenn runs his defense, he likes to bring extra guys to the party. He likes to bring pressure, and he feels like he has the corners now that he can do that. I mean, Brian Branch has been a dog the last 2 years. I think he should be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. But getting back to Jared Goff, like the accuracy he's been able to throw with, and I know a lot of people probably don't have him as high on the MVP list just because the numbers aren't gaudy, but the accuracy numbers are very gaudy. Like the first thing as a quarterback, you need to be accurate and get it to your playmakers, and nobody's done a better job than that. Lamar Jackson, I think it speaks for itself. 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, right? He's not only top 5 in passing, guys, but he's top 15 in rushing.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
On pace for 1,000 yards still.
Like, he's on pace to run for 1,000 yards and be a top 5 passer in this league. And that last game, I don't even put it on him because the drive before, that was a magical drive by Lamar Jackson to take the lead versus the Cleveland Browns, who have a really good defense. His secondary just has struggled this year, and they gave up an explosive play to Cedric Tillman to lose that game. So when you look at it, right, yes, they're not in first place in the NFC North anymore, but the ascension – AFC North, I'm sorry. But the ascension of Lamar Jackson when it comes to throwing the ball from within the pocket, cutting teams up that way, or beating them with his legs, it's second to none. And then Josh Allen, just like Goff, not crazy gaudy numbers. The biggest thing is he hasn't turned the football over, right? 1 interception this year, has 3 rushing touchdowns, 14 passing touchdowns. And he has these guys literally when everybody thought it was going to essentially be a rebuild year. I thought they would struggle this year too. Now, I didn't know the AFC East was going to suck as bad as it sucks right now.
Frauds.
But he's done a really good job bringing on guys like Keon Coleman who can continue to get better every single week. They've leaned into the run game with James Cook really well. And I think the biggest thing for Josh is he is taking care of the football.
He is fumbling. He does have a handful.
He has a few fumbles. He got lucky that they got him back.
When throwing it, he's taking care of it.
I think he might lead NFL. Or I guess he's right behind the NFL lead. He has 5 fumbles on the
because he had one that was bad this last game because of the rain, but he got lucky that they fell back on it.
I will say this. The one guy who's like every single week showed up, or at least getting close to showing up, never had like a dud. Because I think every quarterback's had like a, oof, what was that sort of week, is Lamar Jackson.
For sure.
Lamar Jackson every single week has shown out for that Baltimore Ravens team. Some of that's situation around him. Some of that's just like Lamar's that too. So I think I have to put him at the top because of that. After that, like Jaden Daniels had week 1, you could probably forgive that for a rookie.
That was the first game.
But since then, no duds on his game. So I'm probably putting him number 2. After like Goff, I just can't get over the early season.
Josh
and then the
3.
fact that he doesn't do anything in that offense. Just like on a week-to-week basis, like watching the tape of other guys and what they have to do to run the offense versus what Goff has to do. And it's just like, Goff's just on easy mode. It's just like some guys are playing on all Madden.
They got to make the throws.
He's playing on rookie, and he does. But it's the throws are shallow crossers that go for 40. It's deep overs where Jameson Williams is open by 10 yards that you just have to be in the vicinity. So his level of difficulty just is not at an MVP level. The numbers might be, but his level of difficulty is just, it's too low right now for me to really put him in that conversation because, again, he's done that, but then also had some real bad games, the Bucs game in particular, that basically cost them that one. So I would put probably Josh Allen ahead of him. And honestly, and I know their record's so bad, but I think he can get his way back in if they go on a run and make the playoffs. Joe Burrow's, he's actually playing.
He's dominant.
They were just saying who's playing at a high level. He has been this year after the Patriots game week 1 where he didn't have any of his receivers. After that, he has been playing at a pretty high level week in and week out.
I think your argument about, which the MVP is about which player brings the most value. Like if this player was off their team, who would do worse.
Yeah.
And when I think about who adds the most value, it's Lamar Jackson. And the reason that there's 3 MVP trophies on that screen is because Lamar Jackson is going to win his 3rd MVP this year.
I like that.
There are things that he is doing that show improvement. And the same things we talk about Anthony Richardson, how are you going to be able to improve yourself? Lamar Jackson, each and every time he has touched the football field since he came into the NFL, he's gotten better.
For sure.
And he came in, he was a superstar. And now I don't even know what year is he in?
He was drafted in 2017.
So he's in year 8 now, and he's gotten better every single time. And he was one of the best guys to ever get on the field his first year. I just think his leadership
2018
is unquestioned. Like, you cannot question who the leader is in Baltimore. And I got the opportunity to play with Orlando Brown Jr. in Kansas City, and he protected for Lamar Jackson. And I would always ask him, like, what is Lamar like? You know what I mean?
That guy's I don't want to say he's had an easy road, but look at the 3 quarterbacks.
Burrow, Mahomes, and Lamar.
Good Lord.
That's hitting that's pulling the lever, and it goes 7, 7, 7. And then you just hear the thing jingle for a while. But Lamar Jackson makes it so much fun to play football from what I can see. And every single week he goes out there and makes plays, and you have a chance to win every week because of Lamar Jackson. I think that's why he is going to be the MVP for the 3rd time. And when you talk about Jaden Daniels, I mean, that's another guy. If you take him off that Commanders team, I'm not quite sure how many wins they have. Now Mariota,
I was saying they would have won.
Mariota did a really good job when he was in there, and I think he would have been just fine against the Bears too, but it wasn't a very high scoring affair either way. Right. But to your point, it's about how many letdown games are there. And I give Jaden the benefit of the doubt week 1. I mean, it's the NFL, but since then he's been hot every week. I mean, the guy gives him a chance to win every single week. Your points about Jared Goff are well taken, but also I'd be like, hey, take it easy on Jared Goff. Right? Take it easy on Jared Goff. Because to his point, it's all about the marriage between OC and that roster, the guys that they have at their disposal. You wouldn't hold it against any. I mean, we've held it against Brock Purdy before in San Francisco, but I never held it against Brock Purdy because, to your point, he's got to make the throws. He's got to make the reads. He's got to have the right drop. So, yeah, Lamar's the MVP in my opinion, and that's a good list. That was a nice job there, Leger.
All right. Kyle,
so watching the Hail Mary the other night, and this is the last I'm going to talk about it. I was getting all these mentions. What about the hold?
Bring it up. That's amazing.
What about the hold? Because there was a hold on the play, but hey, newsflash, there are unwritten rules in football.
For sure.
And there's some situations where things aren't going to get called. There's not going to be pass interference. There's rarely going to be a holding penalty on these Hail Marys. And it got me thinking about what other unwritten rules there are in football. And it's not just necessarily with the laundry on the field. I'm talking about just decorum. You know what I'm saying? How we handle ourselves as NFL people, NFL players, NFL coaches, some of these. So running up the score.
Saw J.C. Horn mad at Sean Payton.
So Sean Payton, 4th and 2, 4th quarter for the Broncos. They're winning this game. The game's over. It was a Cortland Sutton threw it to Mike Burton, and in the post-game handshake, and that's another thing. Handshakes between coaches. Yeah. Okay, that's one thing we got to do. Like, if you kick my ass, I'm going to go out there and shake your hand and say, "Good game." We've seen it not happen sometimes.
Yeah.
What's the proper time to where? When are you running up the score? How many points do you have?
I don't believe in calling off the dogs
because it was 28-7, and it was probably midway through the 4th quarter.
28-7, midway through the 4th quarter.
Midway through the 4th quarter.
We're going to run the football. We're in 4 minutes.
Okay, so you're not.
I'm trying to get off. I'm trying to get home.
Down.
Nah,
but 4th down. You convert there, then you can run clock faster than they would because they're going to come back and they're going to pass.
You're absolutely right, but I'm still. I do
think I go for it in that situation because I want fewer plays for my defense.
Exactly.
Right? Fewer plays, fewer injuries.
I'm thinking about the offense. That's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah, but like I convert there, and then I can run 2 more minutes of clock. Whereas if
I understand what you're saying.
They're going 2 minutes. They're going pass. There's more opportunity.
You're concerned with health, not results.
I think JC was more mad because they were like in the low red zone, right? And he's like, "You're still throwing the ball. You're up 21." But my thing is, coaches have been telling me this since Little League. Like, it's your job to stop them. I don't care what the scoreboard is. It's not their job.
Sean Payton said, "Play better."
Hey, it's not his job to call the dogs off. Right? You put yourself in that predicament. Go do something about it.
Okay, so next on my list, dirty plays. Like we've all seen tossed cracks and blindside blocks, things of that nature. For me, I understand that if I'm going to be blocking a guy like Leger and he doesn't see me coming, there's a way to get my job done without putting your health
Are we talking about when we were playing or
in jeopardy?
In the NFL right now?
Current NFL or when we were playing. There was unwritten rules. There's some guys that you're like, there's some guys that
I've been waiting for this.
You have their number written down, and it's like I couldn't handle it in that moment, but I will find you. And I was like Liam Neeson.
That's why
I will find you, and I will
the
kill
current
you.
rules or the rules when we were playing?
So there's unwritten rules there. Like if you're cracking down, like before they made the rules of hitting guys below the knee.
Oh, that used to be so dirty. Man.
Dirty.
God.
So there was.
Like you're coming from outside in, a defensive end doesn't see you, and you like it's a crack toss, and the receiver literally.
Your eyes are in the backfield.
Yeah, like that's dirty, man.
So there's some stuff.
At least hit me up high.
There are things that weren't changed in terms of like legislation and rules wise, but we as players were like, hey, that doesn't fly. And if it does fly, the unwritten rule is we're going to get you back.
Oh no. Yeah, for sure.
And then what's the other one I have on here? I have a million of them. So don't talk about your teammates' contracts, I think is one that is interesting. And there's always times where guys are up for contracts and players in the locker room get asked about it and yada, yada, yada. You'll have to ask them.
Yeah, I remember Brett Favre talking about Javon Walker's contract, and that was a big hullabaloo because he's like, I need him back. And it's like, when he was holding out, and that was like, you don't do that as a quarterback.
That guy's trying to fight for his scratch.
Never talk about another man's money.
Don't celebrate when you're getting your ass beat.
Facts. People are out of control.
I love one of my teammates who I'm still tight with. I still communicate with, Lamar Houston.
Okay.
Was a really good rusher.
Yep.
And he was on the Bears for a bit. And we were playing New England. And Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski were
going to work,
putting on a circus show at Gillette Stadium. And I think they had 52 points. We were in the 20s. Yeah. Lamar got a sack in the fourth quarter. He did his jump, beast mode dance, and he tore his knee.
I remember that. That's crazy.
So that will, like, when my kids are old enough to celebrate when they're winning, I can tell them, or when they're losing, I'll tell them that story.
Yeah.
So that's that's an unwritten rule. Don't celebrate when you're getting your ass beat. Blitzing when the offense is in victory formation. I wanted to ask you this. Okay. So like,
what's the score?
If we're up by 3 points and we're in victory formation, and we're in victory formation.
So like, we always were taught as a D line, right? There's two different sides, right? Say you guys are down and you're trying to come and spike it.
Okay.
We were always taught to dive up under the center.
Well, spiking, yes.
But also, like, if we're down by 3 and you're going to victory formation, we're trying to jump the snap count and like tackle you, maybe trying to strip the ball out of your hands. Yeah.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I was always just like, these guys are assholes, or these guys are cool. Good game.
I've seen the craziest thing happen with guys in victory formations. A quarterback center exchange get bobbled, and the quarterback mess around and he doesn't have full control of the ball and tries to spike it. That's a fumble ball. So like, you always try to throw that timing off between center and quarterback, especially if you're down in the game.
And when Shiano used to like,
that was terrible.
He would
was a
purposefully,
villain.
he had like, we'd go wedge right on the center, and they would just push him back.
That's an all-time villain move, by the way. If you're going to ask me.
You're trying to throw off that center quarterback exchange because, like, again, you bobble the snap or anything, we're still in this thing, right?
I think anybody who does that shouldn't just be thrown in jail. They should be thrown in one of those black site prisons in the middle of like the Caribbean Ocean that
don't get me wrong. If you guys are about like 10 or something like that, that's different. But if it's one score game,
I would be so pissed if I'm up there.
One score game, we're going for it, baby.
Okay, so the other one, star quarterbacks will get calls.
100%. That's an unwritten rule, and it's ridiculous. I get it, right? There's quote unquote the Jordan rules for certain people, but it's just like, are you not allowed to touch Patrick Mahomes anymore? Like, can you not touch that shot? And you know what's crazy about that unwritten rule? Quarterbacks know it. So the flops come out.
Yes.
And it's utterly ridiculous. Like, I've seen a guy get hit like this and the quarterback do all this. And it's just like, I wondered, like, remember Hard Knocks where Caleb Williams and then they were going through like the slippery slide thing?
Yes.
Learn how to slide. I wonder, do quarterbacks practice that?
Flopping.
Yeah, like,
you got to know how to fall.
Yeah, exactly. It can't be like so awkward. I feel like Patrick Mahomes has practiced that.
Yes.
And maybe that's just another minute detail that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have over. I think Josh Allen's another guy that's practiced it really well. And I'm like, there's no way that's just natural. If it's natural, you guys need to be in all type of commercials and movies and TV shows, because the way that some of these guys fall when they barely get touched literally, you would think we were shooting a TV show.
So I've heard Patrick talk about this at length, and people always ask, about his upbringing as a baseball player and a football player. And he's like, hold on a minute, I played basketball too. And as a basketball player, you can't tell me that he wasn't the guy that liked to slash and drive and get hacked and try to go and one. If there is somebody that I can imagine being really good at the and one, it's Patrick Mahomes. So I see him do
body
on the field.
Go up.
It's less soccer flop and more and one for Patrick Mahomes. So I've got a couple more questions here, and then we'll get done with this. What does the sanctity of the logo at midfield look like pregame? If there's an away team that wants to
Terrell Owens dancing on the star,
or during the game.
That was that. You didn't do that. I mean, I think it's more sacred in college than it is in the NFL.
Yes,
obviously,
and like flags and
for
stuff.
sure. Yeah, but that's something you just don't do. Like, I don't seem that it would purposely meet at the 50-yard line during warm-ups just to mess with the opposing
And
team.
the unwritten rule is we each stay at the 40.
Correct.
So
nobody crosses over the logo.
There's that 20-yard buffer there,
Correct.
and there's a line of human beings during warm-ups. And if anybody tries to mosey, it is the DMZ. It's like right between North and South Korea. That's the 40 to the 40. Okay, the last ones I have. Rookie year unwritten rules. So can you explain to people what the training room rules are for a rookie, like in terms of who gets it?
Oh, yeah, you get taped last. Either you get there way before everybody, or you wait till everybody else get taped. There's no like, I got next. No, you should have been here 30 minutes before everybody.
An hour.
Literally an hour. As soon as meetings end, go get taped.
If you don't have tape on in the meetings, you're doing it wrong.
I've seen veterans get rookies off the table mid-tape. Like,
100%.
You got to go, bro.
100%.
I got to get ready for practice. Should have been here earlier.
I mean, I remember Willie Young physically just grabbing guys and being like,
get out of here.
And then the last thing I have, scout team. So individual period.
Yep.
If you have a young guy that doesn't want to go out there and hold bags, like, see, the look you gave me tells me everything I need to know.
Yeah. So like, y'all had that?
Well,
every once in a while there's a guy.
There's 10 guys in the D-line room and 12 guys in an O-line room during training camp. There's always going to be a couple assholes who want to not pull their weight or be lazy.
Hey, as a rookie, like, again, you're supposed to be seen, not heard. Now you can ask questions, but when it comes to guys grabbing the bags to do drills and individual, you need to sprint and get a bag. Right?
And when we say do drills, we don't just mean play patty cake. I mean, somebody has to line up and take this double team from Trey Smith and from Creed Humphrey. Like, who's it going to be? There's when the coach says, who's going to hold the bag? It's not a question. Yeah. It's not.
Get over there and hold that bag.
Get your ass over there.
I don't care if you're a first rounder, second rounder. If you're a rookie, and we had a rule that you had to wait till your third game, your second year. You're still a rookie.
Still a rookie.
Your third game, your second year.
100%.
Get over there and hold that damn bag.
Matt Forte used to be like, hey, what's your name? Your name is Rookie.
We all went through it.
Yeah. Okay, that was fun. Unwritten rules. There's a lot more. And then, you know what? I'll ask you your opinion. What did you think about Bradley Bozeman protecting his quarterback?
I was waiting for you to bring it up.
I had it pinned in there as the end point, and Harry so brilliantly put it on the graphic, so thank you.
I literally, as soon as I saw that and saw it on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I said, I'm a defensive lineman, but I loved everything about what Bradley Bozeman did. Like, there's no need for that in this league. That is just straight dirty play. And to your point, like, guys would be like, oh, Nate Shepard? Oh, you're on this list. We finna come
next
find
week
you.
And next week.
Oh, yeah. Every offensive lineman is going to be like, oh, we got to come find you. Chop blocks, all that. You getting all that. Like, there's certain things you just don't do. Now, I will say this, as a defensive lineman, sometimes when you grab a quarterback, you can't tell if he's let the ball go, but that one was blatant. Like, the ball was gone for like 3 seconds, right? And you could probably tell Herbert was probably like, bro, the ball's gone. And then he tries this army, like, turn move on him. And I loved everything about what Bradley Bozeman did.
And the last rule, and I'll just look into the camera for this one because it's very important for me. If you're playing offensive line next to me, do not talk shit to my matchup.
You gonna rile this guy up, and I gotta face him.
I remember playing the Lions, and we had Jordan Mills was talking shit to Ndamukong Suh, and I'm like, buddy,
he's not on the outside, bro.
Please walk back to the huddle and keep your voice down. Okay, what do you got, Mike?
I'll just say I went back and watched Shiano's 4th down kneel down. I think I'm Shiano pilled. I'm all in on that.
Thank you, Mike. I'm trying to tell you, man.
Did that center?
Yeah.
Look at this. Eli Manning goes flying backwards. He goes flying backwards.
You're
on
just
this.
trying to
violent.
That center quarterback and shit.
Look at that.
They did the tush push on the defensive side of the ball, essentially.
The quarterback was smart, though. He got like 3 yards back.
The whole line gets bounced. Look at that. You could force a fumble so easily on that.
That was fun.
I think I'm Shiano filled. All right.
I hate Shiano. I hate that.
We're going to take a break. We're going to get back and do your mailbag questions.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance, but you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Yeah.
All right. On to your questions. As always, if you leave a 5-star review.
Can we figure out who this guy is?
We need to figure it out.
And if he's really famous and we don't know who he is, I'm going to feel stupid.
If you know who that is, leave us a review.
We've been asking every Wednesday.
But if you leave a 5-star review in that podcast and ask a question, we will for sure answer it. First question here comes from Broken. It is on X. He says, who's the next team to fire their head coach? Raiders, Jags, Cowboys, Cincinnati Bengals, or the New Orleans Saints?
It's funny that the Bears aren't on that list.
That's it. You guys got a winning record right now.
Yeah. I think it.
I'm just saying.
I think it's still Doug Peterson.
Yeah,
I do too.
And after last week,
I mean, Dennis Allen could be right there with him.
6 straight losses.
It's about to get ugly in New Orleans.
After the way that Doug Peterson responded in the interview about Trevor Lawrence's performance last week, he had an opportunity to pump up his guy who just got paid, a Dubai yacht worth of gold bullion. Yeah. And he didn't. What he did was, and this is cool, I mean, he deflected and gave credit to the O-linemen and the receivers and the tight ends and the coaching staff. I think when you start to see that rift there with Trevor Lawrence and with Doug Peterson, that's when it's going to go south. And that's when the ownership and the management will be like, the writing's on the wall here.
Yeah, it's tough.
All right. Next question on X. More Run Sport asks, rank current backup quarterbacks. Does Flacco get a shot to start in Indy next season? So Flacco.
Tyson Bagent's the best.
So I just wrote down some names of who could be.
Is the best right now.
Yeah, we got Justin Fields, Jake Browning, Malik Willis, Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, Sam Howell, Mac Jones, Tyson Bagent, Tyrod Taylor, Kenny Pickett, Marcus Mariota. Those are probably the 10 best backups. Maybe Anthony Richardson in that mix too now, apparently. I'm trying to think of that bunch.
It's got to be Malik. He's played this year.
Jake Browning.
Tyson Bagent.
And I would say Tyrod's got to be up there too. I think he should start this week.
Tyrod's a GOAT.
Tyrod should start this week.
Dalton probably in that mix.
Think so?
100%. When you look at what I know we're going off of this.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it, right, I think it's something to be said when I'm having a brain fart. My guy, the defensive tackle for the New England Patriots, came out and said Aaron Rodgers looked like a shell of himself. I don't know. It's my guy. I don't know why I'm having a brain fart. He said right now I could chase him down if I wanted to.
That's not good.
That's not good. I mean, the thing is, it's a short week.
You're not catching Tyrod.
Aaron Rodgers has already talked about how he's banged up, how his age, with Father Time, it's harder to.
Godshaw.
Yeah, Devon Godshaw. My bad, Godshaw.
I hated playing Godshaw.
He was literally saying in the game, he was just like, it's hard to see because he's a future Hall of Famer. But he can't really move in the pocket. And we knew that going into the game. So that was the game plan, to make him just stay in the pocket, because we knew he couldn't really run out of the pocket. He was like, right now, I could probably chase him down. And, it's sad to say that.
And Godshaw's no spring chicken.
Exactly. This is a run plugger, right? Like he stays inside.
That's why I hate him.
Guard to guard, not tackle to tackle. Guard to guard is where he stays.
He was in Miami.
Business.
That's where I played him, right?
That's where he does his business. So, honestly, I think the Jets should consider, and I think a reporter asked Ulbrich that the other day, and he's like, there's no plans for that right now. But why not give Aaron Rodgers more rest? And then, honestly, what if Tyrod, infuses some energy?
What if they get juice?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like Tyrod looked really good during training camp. You paid him all this money to be a top backup just because of what happened to Aaron Rodgers last year. This is a perfect opportunity. Not only will Aaron Rodgers get 10 days of rest, right, to regenerate, refocus, but now you have a guy that is mobile in the backfield. You talked about how Tyron Smith has struggled at times at left tackle. Well, Tyrod is going to be able to maneuver and get away from some guys. You got the Houston Texans coming this week. They're one of the top pressure rate teams in all of football.
Edge rush city.
Exactly. To me, it makes sense to start Tyrod this week.
And for the Flacco getting a shot next year, I mean, it comes down to the long-winded conversation we had earlier about Anthony Richardson. What do they see inside that building? And does Flacco have enough juice to go out there and get up on the horse again?
One more year,
because I've heard him talk about that trip to the bathroom when you roll out of bed at 40 years old. And it's like he said, by the time I get to the toilet, I'm standing straight up. But, until then, I'm like a creaky old man.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I don't think they're rolling into next year with Flacco as their starter.
For sure.
I just think that's very unlikely. It obviously depends on how Anthony Richardson responds to his benching, but even still,
Does he crash out?
I think they have a good enough situation that they could attract a vet that's not Flacco, maybe from elsewhere, via trade, via free agency, whatever.
Justin Fields?
Sam Darnold, someone of
Fields
that
makes
nature.
a lot of sense.
That
Could you imagine
Malik Willis
that
has one more year on his
backfield?
deal, right?
He does, yes. So
Green Bay not letting him go nowhere.
that was still. All right, next question here. How much of this is from Barotis Operandi. How much of Bo Nix's success is legit versus effective scheming by Peyton? I think Nix is getting slept on for how well the Broncos are doing, but I'm not sold that he's the same level of playmaker that Caleb, Daniels, May, et cetera, have each already shown they can be. Well, that's because he's not. That's why he got drafted.
I say you said it. If you had to ask it in the question, you said it.
But Bo Nix's intangibles are not what those guys' intangibles are. And I'll let Mike expand on that.
Well, again, those guys were drafted 1, 2, 3 because they are uniquely high-end physical. That's why, like, last year's quarterback class was insane because I think those 3 guys don't exist. Like, Nix was kind of, Jared Goff level of prospect. He could have gone number 1 overall if no one else was available, if it really was no one else, because obviously the need still existed for those teams at the top. But those guys are different. Those guys are unique prospects. That's why they were drafted 1, 2, 3. It's why this quarterback class is built the way that it was. And why no one was willing to trade those picks, right? Everyone's like, oh, should we trade back and trade away? It's like, no. We want these guys. But Nix is, I mean, for a rookie, he's playing awesome. And it's how much is effective scheme by Peyton. It's like, that's why they were so high on him, because his skill set is Sean Payton's offense.
100%.
So it is, yes, it's a good amount, right? It's always has to be a symbiotic relationship between you and your play caller at the quarterback position. So it's a good amount, but I do think Nix he's a high level processor. You saw it at Oregon. He basically made like 2 mistakes all last season in terms of putting the ball in harm's way. And that's we've seen since early on in the season when he had some real ugly mistakes. So I said, since week 3 on, lowest turnover worthy play rate in the NFL. He does not put the ball in harm's way. So yeah, he's going to be inaccurate at times. Yeah, he's going to struggle to push the ball down the field consistently, but he keeps the offense on schedule because he doesn't make sacks, doesn't take sacks, doesn't put the ball in harm's way, doesn't fumble, and he'll take those checkdowns and get those 5-yard gains consistently. So if you have an effective rushing game, he can lead you to a high-end offense. And I think this is only him as a rookie, right? And he's already doing this. I think he can still develop, and you don't need to be necessarily Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May level of physical talent, even if Bo Nix has some physical tools to his own right. Don't get twisted, to still play elite level quarterback and play at the NFL level, as we've seen guys like, Kirk Cousins do over the course of his career. I think he can very easily reach that level of quarterback. Yeah. And it's not hard to see after what he's doing as a rookie.
Is Bo Nix the shortest quarterback name ever?
Yes,
it could be.
It actually is.
Also, there you go. Also, just his experience. I mean, like the guy played so much ball. The guy has played,
total opposite of Anthony Richardson.
The most ball. So yeah, it's what came first, the chicken or the egg? In Denver, is it Sean Payton's experience? Is it Bo Nix's abilities? No, it's a combination of those two things.
All right, next question. What comes from O'Darity Fergal, who says, how much of the Falcons' pass rush issues are a result of scheme? I'm going to say not much. They don't have the
personnel. Is the personnel.
Yeah. Pass rushing is more often than not
Johnny's versus Joe's.
Yes, and they have their 2 best pass rushers are a 32-year-old Matthew Judon, who does not look the same coming off a biceps tear, and a 31-year-old Grady Jarrett, who does not look the same coming off an ACL tear. It's just unfortunate. Fact of life, old guys don't recover from injuries the same way young guys do.
Yeah, I thought Arnold Ebiketie would take another step. He actually looked good at spots last year. Yeah.
Well, he's probably won some one-on-ones, but like you can't have one guy who's average be your best pass rusher, right? That's how you get to. They have the 4th worst pressure rate in the NFL. So James Smith-Williams seeing legit snaps. Lorenzo Carter seeing legit snaps. Yeah. Taquan Graham seeing legit snaps. We've seen those guys. Those are second contract guys who we've seen not play well.
I think the big massive blow to them was Braylon Trice going down early in the season because he was actually looking really good throughout training camp, and I actually loved him coming out of Washington. I think they took him in the 3rd round, if I'm not mistaken. He had a chance to become a starter on this team, and then ended up having that knee injury and it took him out for the year. So I think that was a major blow in regards to pass rush for them as well too. Yeah, I mean it's why they traded for Judon so late in the process. They kind of knew. They're like, oh shoot. We need another
Thank God the Falcons score 50 points a game.
There you go. All right. Next question. Assuming the Lions, this one with Jerry Fredericks, assuming the Lions don't make a splash move at the deadline, what are your biggest concerns with them going forward? I mean,
that's a well-balanced breakfast over there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Protecting Jared Goff.
I think so.
What?
You think so?
I think they have the best line in
They got
football.
4 sacks in the last 2 games.
The interior of the offensive line isn't quite the exterior.
So you got to be able to hold up.
Decker has struggled the last 2 weeks.
You got to be able to hold up late in the season, because late in the season, you're not going to be playing just the everyman's teams. You're going to be playing the best teams. And we talk about this. I mean, your issues become magnified in these meaningful games. And I think with the style of offense they play, with Jared Goff getting to his launch point and being a stationary guy, you're going to have to really hone in on protecting Jared Goff in order to keep Ben Johnson's offense at the click it's been known to perform at.
I think we're going to get a really good, so obviously edge rush. I mean, with no Aiden Hutchinson, that's a concern. I think the other one's maybe starting a rookie corner in Terrion Arnold, who's been a little up and down as a rookie. Those are probably your 2 biggest ones. But we'll really get a good test this week against the Green Bay Packers, because so far they've had to blitz to get pressure, and they've been effective at it without Aiden Hutchinson. But they haven't faced an O-line like the Packers that they've handled blitz pickup about as well as anyone in the NFL this season. That offensive line's playing at a really high clip right now. So going into Green Bay, being able to use the hard count, are they going to even affect Jordan Love in that game at all? I think it's the biggest thing, because you're going to see.
The question is Malik starting though?
Yeah, that's all.
Well, I mean, but he's playing really well.
So are you going to affect?
They said Jordan Love looks pretty good.
It looked good when he left that game.
Groin tweak from
how these things go.
Groin can linger too.
Yes.
So can they
groins be
affect
lingering.
this one? That'll be because once you get to the playoffs in the NFC, the offensive lines you're going to have to face, whether it's Packers probably, whether it's 49ers, whether it's, Philadelphia Eagles,
everybody's thinking like
Washington Commanders. It's like you're going to have to. There's no real layup offensive lines that they will be a mismatch for, in my opinion, to where they're going to have to get pressure somehow. So that's the biggest concern.
And even if you went and got Zadarius Smith, I
think they should.
You're still not going to be able to beat Lane Johnson. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day,
I mean,
you can't.
Aaron likes to bring pressure anyway. So, even when Aiden Hutchinson was there, they were bringing 5 to the party usually.
There's a little guy outside of him.
Correct. He's usually doing that. That way, Aiden could get a one-on-one on the outside. To me, obviously, people could say the pass rush. I just think schematically, Aaron Glenn has done a really good job of mixing things up so that they can get pressure. The biggest question for me is Jameson Williams. They've had so much success earlier in the season because he was having so much success. He would always get the second corner and he was eating them alive, right? Now coming off the suspension, how long would it take him to get, flushed back into the offense? Will he play at the same level he played at before he left, right? That's a big question, because that was a question mark coming into the season. Everybody knew about the Sun God and Amon-Ra St. Brown, but when teams decided to bracket him and take him away, they struggled at times, throughout last year, and they were looking for a second guy. Last year was Josh Reynolds, right? This year it's been Jameson Williams. Can he continue to play at that level coming back from suspension?
Yeah.
I think they'll be fine on O-line, Kyle, because one thing they will do is they'll go 12 personnel and they'll leave Brock Wright in, right? So, they'll match for take shots down the field. So I think they'll be good. I think Jameson Williams is the biggest question mark for the Lions. His involvement in the offense really takes them to another level. He has to be the guy he was before the suspension.
All right, next question comes from AZJ saying, Arizona's 4-4 after a brutal schedule to start the year. They're currently first in the NFC West.
Which is crazy.
They are getting Darius Robinson back from IR. They need to make a play for an edge rusher and have $100+ million in cap in 2025. Are you trading for an edge rusher? I mean, if there was a Montez Sweat-esque deal to be made here,
JJ Watt,
I would probably be in favor of it. But the thing is, there's
JJ Watt.
There's not, though.
Bring him back.
That's what I'm saying. Last time he was there, he had 10 sacks.
Exactly.
There's just not that guy, unfortunately, this year who is even close to, 1, that level of play, 2, hitting their prime.
There's one, but they're not. Raiders aren't letting Max Crosby go.
Okay, he's already hit that contract though. Yeah. There's not a guy about to be hitting free agency that you kind of steal before he hits free agency.
Like Sweat.
Like Sweat. So unfortunately, there's just not that play to be made, because I would love for them to go get someone.
Because that would be a fun team.
Just because if there were an edge rusher.
Dennis Godak was really, really good for them.
He was.
And him going down kind of hurt.
I think they're just firmly, it's a good edge class in this year. It's one of your edge, at least, is the deepest of the positions in the first round right now. that I think you're just looking eyes on the draft, taking another one in this year's draft.
And honestly, they're a year ahead right
Yeah.
now. Right? I thought this team could muddle around like 7 and 10, 8 and 9. I thought next year would be their year. But the way that's the thing. Nobody's talking about the NFC West. I know the NFC North is a dog division and probably the best, if not the best in football. The NFC West is going to come down to the wire, man. Good Lord. Everybody's
Rams are getting healthy.
Or better.
They could all go above 500, but they could all go 9-8. You know,
exactly.
right?
Like they literally, everybody can go 9-8 in that division.
Yeah. All right. Next question here comes from Matthias on X. He says, if Russ keeps up this level of play and the Steelers win a playoff game,
oh man,
what kind of contract is he looking
back
at?
on this?
Oh man,
I would say less than Baker Mayfield's deal. You can't give him.
I think it ends up like Geno's. So Geno got 3 years, $75 million.
Something like that.
3 years, $75 million.
But Russ will be what,
quarterback
like 30,
contracts are different.
Russ will be what?
He's 36
35.
right
I was
now.
gonna say he's up there too.
So it's
3
probably more like
years.
2 years, 50. I bet we're looking at
50.
But then again, could he go to the table and be like, "Look, you gave Kirk Cousins 2 year 50 essentially.
And that's what
I
he'll
don't
do.
deserve that."
That's what he'll do. He'll say whatever the other old head
They might let
gave.
him walk. They've won without a quarterback every year.
I bet it's So
And then
Cousins
Russ becomes a Raider.
That could happen.
Cousins got 4 years, 180.
Yeah.
Now it's obviously like I don't think he's going to get to that fourth year
Yeah.
with
Next
how it
2
was
years.
set up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with Russ and just given the level of play,
If they
that
win a
this year-
playoff game,
that this year he's at 2.5 million. He basically took a prove it
The Denver's
deal.
paying him a lot more than that.
Yeah.
crazy.
I do think that
We never got deals like that
He
where
ain't
it was
gonna
like,
get it.
I'm here now, but they're paying me.
It's ridiculous now.
I think like 2 years, 50 is where your
Yeah.
bread and butter is.
For sure.
All right, last one here.
Thanks, Matthias.
Quick one from DG. on
Has there
X.
been a discussion about going for 2 when you're up by 1, then score a touchdown? If you score to go up 7, getting the 2-point conversion puts you up by 9. So a 2-possession game. If you fail, you're still up by 7, and the opponent will likely just kick the extra point to tie. This happened in Madden last night.
So if you really have a much, much better offense than you do a defense, it behooves you to do it. That's the only situation, because we used to call an 8 at PFF. We would call an 8-point game a 1.5 possession game, because an extra or a 2-point conversion is a 50-50. It's not, and it kind of lulls you. You want to be up 8 because it lulls the other team into a false sense of security. They play basically like it's a 1-score game.
Yep.
They will run it down to the wire, score with like 30 seconds left or whatever. Say you go up 8 with 4 minutes left. They're going to play like they have 1-score game.
Correct.
But it's a 1.5-score game because you have that 50-50 coin flip at the end. But if you go up by 9, all of a sudden they play like it's a 2-possession game, and the urgency goes faster. They know they have to score twice. They're not going to let it go down to the wire. So they're going to hurry up to try to score that first one, onside kick, whatever, or use their 3 timeouts, kick it away, use 3 timeouts. So you really don't want to go up by 9 in that scenario. You want them thinking
That false sense of
we can.
You want the
Yes,
one-
you want them
1.5
using as
possession.
much clock as humanly possible. So
Correct.
you really don't want to. But I said the only reason it really behooves you is if you're, say, like maybe the Commanders could fall into a team where you feel so much better about your offense than your defense or maybe even the Ravens at this point, that it might make sense for you to go for that 2-point conversion instead of going. But it definitely, but just on the whole, for teams that are the vast majority of teams, you want to go up by 8. All right, there you have it. There are your mailbag questions. We'll be back tomorrow previewing every game on the Week 9 now slate. Until next time, keep pushing.
Peace.